as usual, I'm going to go through the cast and then read the Google synopsis of it, and then look at how Commons Media breaks down the show, and then also get to the reviews. Once I get to the Google reviews part, that's pretty much going to be my favorite part of this, because this is one of those shows where a lot of people had to do extensive research to understand the ending and to understand what went down in the last episode and how this whole thing came together. Whereas most of the shows is like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I liked it or I didn't like it. I'm still in the process right now of deciding what to rate this show. The only thing I can tell you is it's not a 1 and it's not a 10. That's about all I can give you right now. It's not a 1 and it's not a 10, so it's anywhere between a 2 and an 8. So, but maybe towards the end of this video, if a number does pop into my head as far as what I feel is the appropriate rating for it based on what I saw, I'll give you that number, or I'll put it in the comment section later on. So, let's get to it, because I'm telling you, this one is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So the cast is, we have the main cast, which is Lily Rose Depp, who plays Jocelyn. The Weeknd plays Tedros. We have Jennie Kim as Diane. Rachel Sennott, or Sennott. There's 2 T's here. It might be Sennott. If I'm mispronouncing that, sorry. Who plays Leia. There's always at least one name. Every time I do these videos, there's always one name, whether it be a first name or last name, that I can't pronounce or that I don't know how it's pronounced because I haven't seen it before. Absolutely painful. Troye Sivan, or Sivan. I'm going to go with Sivan. See what I mean? See? Plays Xander. Suzanna's son plays Chloe. Hari Neff plays Talia. Let's see. Dan Levy as Benjamin. Moses Sumney as Isaac. Divine Joy Randolph as Destiny. Sophie Mudd as Sophie. Hank Azaria is Kayam. I want to know, is that the same Hank Azaria from the 7th? Okay. Jane Addams is Nikki. Eli Roth is Andrew Finkelstein. And then the rest of these are other people who were background characters or had special appearances or whatever. And a lot of these names here I see are very, very foreign. So I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce some of these names. I see Olga Kuzmina. That's about as far as I'll go. So, now let's get into it. This show was only 5 episodes, and it ran in June of 2023. It's an HBO original show, so it's available to watch on Max. However, giving some of the ratings of this show, I don't know how much longer it'll be on there, so if you want to watch it, I suggest catch it now while it's free. After having a nervous breakdown that caused the cancellation of her last tour, an aspiring pop star begins a complicated relationship with a self-help guru and the head of a contemporary cult. Now, it was created by The Weeknd, Sam Levinson, and Reza Fahim. Now, what are the ratings on this show? The ratings are a little bit all over the place, but most of the reviews I've seen on here lean more negative than positive. Rotten Tomatoes only gave this show a 19%. Internet Movie Database gave it a 45. Okay, they were a little bit nicer. And then Google users have the average rating of 44 to 60. So 60 is about the highest number you'll get on this show. Now, here's how Commons Media breaks it down before I get to the Google reviews, because this gets interesting. Created by Sam Levinson, the Idol stars Lily Rose Depp as Jocelyn, a Britney Spears-like pop star staging a comeback after a few rough years. She doesn't trust her management, she doesn't like her new single, and she doesn't hold much hope for the direction her life and career is going. And then she meets Tedros. Now she has someone new to live for, but is this relationship a positive move or hastening her slide? I don't think it was that much of a positive move. Question mark. By the way, I might throw some spoilers in here, so I'm not going to sit there and tell you no spoilers and then I accidentally slip in a spoiler. I'm just going to tell you right now, there might be some spoilers. Now, is it any good? This series is clearly reaching for Euphoria's attention-grabbing hot mess levels, but the characters aren't finely drawn enough to make them interesting. Or possibly the Idol's actors aren't skilled enough to put the nuances their characters should have across. Because though Lily Rose Depp is gorgeous to look at, she's also blank. We don't know what demons drive her into the treacherous arms of Tedros. We're meant to understand that all we need to know through dialogue we're meant to understand all we need to know through dialogue. Like, when you're famous, everyone lies to you, but the train isn't going all the way to the station. Similarly, The Weeknd doesn't show enough charisma on screen to make him a viable candidate for irresistible guru, nor do we feel the chemistry with Jocelyn might explain her attraction. So the more showy elements of the show, sex, drugs, alcohol, and betrayal, all wind up feeling empty. The Idol is trying too hard to impress us with its coolness, when what it could really use is a shot of sincerity. Despite the buzzy cast and connection to hits, The Idol fails to win fans. Families can talk to your kids about. Families can talk about whether it's okay to show sex, drinking, or drug use on television. Do shows like The Idol present a realistic view of life, or is anything exaggerated for entertainment? Okay, so is it realistic to show that stuff? Or, matter of fact, let's do it one by one. It's okay. Families can talk about whether it's okay. First of all, depending on how young your kids are, that's not even a conversation. So instead of asking like kids about that, especially young kids, don't even bring it up. Just keep their attention on the Nickelodeon, the Cartoon Network, the Disney, stuff like that. You know, maybe Animal Planet, Discovery Channel. Keep it right there. Now, do shows like The Idol present a realistic view of life, or is anything exaggerated? It seems like there were many parts of that show that were realistic, because as they stated earlier, it's like when you're in the industry, a lot of celebrities have this, people automatically think a celebrity's life is just perfect just because they're rich and famous, and because a lot of people, like them, they think they're hot, whatever the case might be. But a lot of them struggle with stuff too. We don't know what they could be struggling with, whether it be something related to their career, whether it's something related to personal matters. I mean, we've seen this look at celebrities in real life who took their lives for different reasons. I mean, Robin Williams had depression and he had demons and stuff, and he took his life. And then you had people like Bill Hicks. I was almost drawing a blank on his name. Bill Hicks, who was a comedian of the late 80s, early 90s. He turned to drugs and alcohol. He died at the age of 32 or 33 as a result of that. So, or is anything exaggerated for entertainment? I think every show and movie out there has at least one thing in it that they exaggerate for the purpose of entertainment or for the purpose of plot advancement. They do that with, obviously I point out all the time, they do that with a lot of shows and movies that I watch. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case here. What would the real life consequences of the character's behavior be? Well, for one, some of them would have, at least one I can think of for sure, would have been arrested and convicted. I mean, that I know to be a fact. The Idol contains sexual images as well as nudity. How often is the nudity related to sex, and how often is it non-sexual? Examples: people bathing or changing. Does it matter? Do you know anyone struggling with drug abuse or addiction? What are the challenges they might face? What are some resources you know of that could be helpful? Now, let's get to the Google reviews. And by the way, I'm curious to know right quick. Let me just see if I can look at the viewership numbers for, okay, here we go. Keep in mind, it only had 5 episodes. This was the shortest lived series that I had ever known. Here's the viewership per episode. Episode number 1, 232,000. 2, 135,000. 3, 133,000. 4, also 133,000. And then 5, 185,000. Okay. So they went, so about approximately 100,000 people, left. They quit. They gave up. Now, let's go back to the Google reviews, because this is what I really want to get to. A 5-star gave it this: I recently stumbled upon a hidden gem of a TV show called The Idol. Let me tell you, I'm already hooked after just 2 episodes. As a fan of The Weeknd, I was naturally drawn to this series, and boy, it did not disappoint. The first episode immediately grabbed my attention with its gripping storyline. We get a glimpse into the life of Jocelyn, our aspiring pop idol, portrayed brilliantly by Lily Rose Depp. She's on the cusp of making a triumphant return to the music scene, but things take an unexpected turn when a leaked photo sends her team into a frenzy. I am not here to detail what that leaked photo was, but just by me saying that alone, some of you can just kind of figure it out. Just figure it out. It's It's a photo. Just, just you can figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then just watch the show, and then they'll explicitly tell you and show you in the show. I will not say it here, but to those of you that seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. The rest of you figure it out and watch the show. Leaks into a frenzy. Meanwhile, a journalist arrives to do a profile on Jocelyn, adding even more pressure to the mix. I was on the edge of my seat, eager to see how Jocelyn would handle these challenges. Now, here's the gist of a lot of the show. She's constantly having these mental struggles. She's depressed. She's stressed out, and she's hardly gets any sleep, and she's always out and about, and she feels like she's being controlled by, the people around her, her managers, producers, all that stuff. And then she meets this guy, Tedros, played by The Weeknd, who I could not stand at all. I'm assuming most people who watch the show also couldn't stand him. This guy was, he just has the typical, hey, I'm confident, but, I can control this girl. And, he's a bad guy. He physically and mentally abuses people, and they just let him get away with it. Now, let me spoil it a bit for you. Let me spoil it. In the last episode, we learned that Joss turned her back on him. It turns out that I'm trying to figure out a way that I can explain this properly, because this show was it was different. Turns out that she was masquerading as a puppet. Turns out that she was the puppeteer the whole time. Went against him. Made him lose everything that he had. And now all of a sudden, he becomes a slave to her. In the last 10 minutes of that final episode, they kind of reunited. She goes out to perform at this big arena, which looks like a football stadium, and it has to be like 80,000 plus people there. She says, "I'm here to introduce you all to the love of my life." Now, I'll tell you what actually happened, and I'll tell you what I thought was going to happen. What I thought was going to happen was this was probably going to be a twist, and she was going to bring on Xander or Rob, who was her ex, which, by the way, she brought him to the house on purpose to make Tedros jealous, and of course he was. He was crying like the sissy and the wimp that he is, the coward, and other names that I could say but will not say on this show right now. And then she brings on Tedros. I said, well, apparently she didn't learn anything. But then they kiss in front of everybody, and then she says, "You're mine forever. Now go stand in the corner." And what does he do? He goes stands in the corner while she performs. Now, 80 to 90, I would say this. I would say 80% of the people who watched that show or saw that scene did not get that. Did not immediately get that. And that's why I had to research it, because I didn't get that. And then the other 20% of people understood it, and it was basically saying, like, she was supposedly in, under his control the whole time, or he was controlling her, and then she flipped it. Now it turns out the whole time is she was the puppeteer, she's in control, and now she has to basically control him. Now he's the slave, for lack of a better term right now, but now he's the puppet. And it's like, wow, this whole time she was in control. This whole time. Now, here's what the 1 stars had to say on this. "The idol desperately wants your moral condemnation. Don't give it what it wants. Saying it's gratuitous and offensive is just confirming to the creators that they've succeeded in their clear efforts to overstimulate and offend. Let's say instead what it actually is. Really, really boring. It's been a little frustrating to watch such a genuinely bad product receive so much equally bad, easily dismissed criticism, as if the problem here was that the creators are men and not these men, and not that these men in particular are hacks, as if it's creatively bankrupt because it includes a large amount of explicit sex and not because its perspective on sex is so immature. I really have no issue with high levels of sex and violence in media, and I don't care about kink on screen. And I think it's completely possible for people to write or act out disturbing stuff without being dangerous in real life. So please take it from me, even with all out of the way, The Idol is still terrible. The Weeknd can't act. And again, I'm not in the movie industry, and I don't know that many people personally who are in the movie industry, so I'm not really here to make a judgment on who was able to act or who wasn't able to. I think they all did their job. Now, some movies, I think they're cheesy and corny or whatever. But that's not because it's the actor or actress's fault. It's the people who directed and produced and wrote the movie and told them to do this scene just like this. They did it. So, I mean, like I said, I've talked about before how I've seen movies like Evil Dead 2 from 1987 or Halloween 78. The acting, it was just cheesy and corny, but that's just what you got at the time. And it's not their fault the same way that it's not the fault of the actors and actresses today. So if they wanted to replace them, they could have done it, and they could have just done that. So I don't know. This is just me guessing and speculating and just kind of pontificating here. It's whatever. He can't act. It seems possible Lily Rose Depp can, but you wouldn't know it from watching this. Their romance is supposed to have an element of forbidden fruit, with Depp feeling irresistibly compelled to continue letting this guy into her life despite his clear shadiness. But The Weeknd isn't capable of coming off as either credibly charming or threatening. He's not even credibly sexual, which is a weird thing to write about someone who sings about sex in his other career of all time. I don't know. I don't know. That could be a legit criticism. It could be. One person here wrote on a 1-star, The Idol is yet another red flag of a show made by Sam Levinson. I guess at least this show isn't showing sexualized and explicit scenes of underage characters. Oh, never mind. Chloe's 17. Of course, he had to toss that in there. It seems that one of his favorite characters to write are young, if not underage, emotionally vulnerable blonde girls that can't stay clothed for over 5 minutes. And I'm not sure if Tedros was sexually grooming his cult members, including Chloe, but there were definitely undertones. I can say that Sam, as a director, can have potential when it comes to lighting, visuals, and music, but I have nothing good to say past that. He chooses to portray very dark and questionable things in a glorifying way. Euphoria and The Idol are essentially both just porn movies with a few minutes of storyline between graphic shots. Euphoria is about a group of underage high school girls, and the show is filled with over-the-top graphic language and nudity. Evert, few minutes. Evert, few minutes. Okay, I don't know. That was a mistype, or maybe that's something that I don't. Just a very questionable decision to show these kids struggling with drug addiction, being abused and sexually taken advantage of, prostitution, having sex, or being partially naked 90% of the time. Rue almost being trafficked, Maddie being in control when a 40-year-old man statutory raped her at 14. The show comes off as glorifying obscene things with teenagers and is extremely sexualizing. Yet teens have sex and do drugs, but the show romanticizes it, and it is so inappropriate that kids the same age as the characters can't watch it. So who is the target audience? Who is the show about minors and explicit scenarios targeted to? So, I mean, I don't know. I can't really judge that criticism because I didn't watch Euphoria. I mean, I just finished The Idol. So if I decide to watch Euphoria, then I'll give my take on that based on what I see and understand of that. Let's see what the middle stars have to say. 3-star says, this is trash, uncensored television at its best and worst. It tells the tale of Jocelyn, a megastar singer whose career nearly cratered after a tour-canceling mental breakdown when her mother died. Think Britney Spears' best and worst moments in life and you'll get the idea. Now, one of the biggest things about this show, too, was that Jocelyn supposedly lied about the hairbrush. She talked about a hairbrush that her mother constantly beat her with. When Tedros goes into the last episode, so in the last episode, Tedros goes in the room, there's a hairbrush and it looks new. Which tells the audience a couple different things. Either A, Jocelyn lied about the story about her mom abusing her, or B, she got a new brush, but I still don't understand why she got a new brush, if that was the case. That was the part that kind of threw me off. Now, most of the other story, the rest of the story, it makes sense for the most part. I just think the way they did this was so complex to the point where it was just too confusing. And I think that's why, to be fair to the people who like the show, they're saying, well, people who gave it a negative rating, they didn't understand it. These people are not strong thinkers. They don't know how to look at the subtle messages and read between the lines. That's fair. Some people are mindless watchers. And like I told you, I'm guilty of being one of those people when it comes to certain shows and movies. But I guess to be fair to the other side, it's like the people who gave it a low rating that are criticizing people who gave it a high rating. They're just saying, oh, they gave it a high rating just because there's a lot of sex, drugs, and alcohol. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has their opinion, and you can listen. If you have not seen the show, it's still available to watch on Max. It's only 5 episodes, and you watch it and you just see what you see in it. You give your own perception and perspective. If you saw the show, just let me know what you think. Put it in the comment section, and I mean, I don't know. You tell me what you think. What would you rate the show? 1, 10, 5, 6? I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to decide what I'd give this show. Now let me just do this right quick. It's not a 1, it's not a 10. It's not a 2, it's not a 9. It's not a 3, it's not an 8. What are we talking, 4 to 7? I don't know if I give it a 4, so now that leaves 5, 6, and 7. This is like the most difficult thing I've had to do on the show. 5, 6, 7. When I look at the number 6, I feel that that's appropriate, but then I look at 5 and 7 and say, well, 7 might be being a little too generous. 5 might be too... If I had to pick a number, I may possibly go with 6. I might go with 6. And if I'm in a better mood and if I felt I was being nicer, I might give it a 6.5 close to a 7. Right now, I'm just going to say 6 is the number. So, other than that, I mean, that's the review of this show right here. And there's a lot of other elements that are in this show that I have not talked about, but I'm going to save that for you to watch, and then you can judge it for yourself. There are other shows and movies I will be talking about soon, so like and subscribe. Check out the Idol on Max. It is a wild ride, so check it out. It's crazy.